Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of this season of History for Gays. In case you are new or are a returning listener and forgot my name, hi, my name is Victoria and I love history. We are in fact continuing our exploration that the last episode started. Of course, I'm referencing the season's topic of the history of Iran, specifically the history between the years leading up to 1914 all the way through 1945. Today, the focus will be on the impact of Western influences. And there's a lot of them. So without further ado, put on your exploring shoes. Let's take it back. So, in the year 1907, Britain and Russia came together and formed the Anglo-Russian Agreement of, 1907. Appropriately named, huh? This agreement more or less divvied up the states of the Middle East to be under their respective spheres of influence. What this meant for Iran was the, for lack of a better term, division of different regions. Russia had their sphere of influence in the north. The British had their sphere of influence in the east and south. And the west/center of the country was what the two countries declared to be a neutral zone. In this area, or of the neutral zone, both powers could compete for their own political or economic advantage. So it wasn't necessarily neutral, as they called it. It should not be a big surprise when I say that it didn't end smoothly. Iran hired an American named Morgan Schuster as the Treasurer General to collect taxes from the government officials that occupied the territory. I think it's kind of funny that the word Schuster makes me think of Glee, Mr. Schuster, but we don't talk about him. Yuck. Anyways, these officials just happened to be Russian! So you can imagine that the Russians did not like that someone was forcing them to pay taxes, and an American at that. Not saying that all Russians hate America, or Americans, but, well, at the time, Anyways, they formed a plan, and in 1911, they went to the Majlis, again, the council building, to attempt to dismiss him, Morgan Schuster, that is. They ended up occupying the capital and more or less forced the Constitution to once again be suspended. This Constitution just went in and out of limbo, right? Crazy. The other agreement was the Anglo-Persian Agreement of 1919. In it, the British said that they would recognize Iran as independent. What? Crazy! They were also promised a £2 million loan and would receive assistance with their railroad and train projects. However, because the Iranian government did not ratify this document, it was more or less null and void. Oh, and speaking of null, the Russians also said they would consider the Anglo-Russian Agreement of 1907 to be null because of the Bolshevik Revolution. Anyways, because they declared themselves neutral and that didn't happen, they were represented in the Paris peace talks by the US. Iran was excluded from this, and America recognized their independence. Also between Iran and Britain was the APOC, as I previously mentioned, or the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. It was created in 1908, but Britain bought 51% of the company in 1914. This really stimulated the economy and promoted projects that I mentioned earlier. Mentioned in the last episode, Islam was brought over in the 7th century, and the government in Iran was run by clergymen. They ran everything, really. And with Reza Khan now in charge, judicial systems, I don't know why that word was hard to pronounce. Judicial systems were introduced, along with European ideas of mayors and, progression. Laws were based on French models, and there was less Islamic law and more secularization. Khan really just did not like these clergymen to be in charge. And in the 1920s and 30s, as Iran had become more and more increasingly secular, Muslims did not like that, and that's totally understandable. Why would you like someone to get rid of your religion that you care so deeply about, especially because they're kind of close to Mecca? Moreover, missionaries were sent to Iran to attempt to Christianize the country, because of course there were. But due to the Persian campaign wiping out ethnic Christian groups, this was rejected. The court minister Tey Mortash once said, quote, Iran is trying to get rid of religion in its own schools, and further asks, in a rhetorical way, how would you like it if we bundled up a crowd of moth-eaten mullahs and sent them to America to open up schools there? Mullah in moth-eaten just means a very old-fashioned Muslim. Simply put, Temurtash was asking how would America like it if Muslim people were sent to America to try and convert them. And the last part of this episode is about World War II, baby. Sorry, that was not making light of World War II. When Hitler invaded Russia, the Allies needed to pass their supplies there somehow. And therefore, as I previously mentioned, Iran lost its neutrality and aided the British and Russians. In response, Reza Khan was abdicated through these forces, and his son was put into power. Which, to me, just sounds ridiculous, because he had done all this modernization of the country as, the British wanted, because European influence, let's go. But no, he was abdicated. Well, I do believe that I just covered a lot of information. I think I need a nap, to be frank. So the question of the day is this. How do countries come to an agreement when the goals of them don't match? And what about when one country is known to be deceiving? How can other countries trust them? Think about that. This has been your host, Victoria, and it's time to take off your exploring shoes now, folks.